Welcome back to the Strong Kind podcast. This episode is with Anna Wishnowsky. Anna is a coach that likes to delve into a variety of areas in fitness. This episode was really awesome. I've actually worked with Anna in my nutrition and in my fitness, and I really like her takes. I think she's really smart. She also just me and her are on the same page when it comes to training multiple physical qualities, enjoying training, and wanting to be well-rounded in a lot of areas in fitness. She's got a great Instagram page. You can find her at Anna Wish Fitness on Instagram. She's also going to be starting a YouTube channel that I hope she gets together soon and starts putting out some awesome content. This conversation was really meaningful. We kind of talked about, finding your space and in the fitness and the health space, like meaning how to go about creating something that feels authentic and helps you find the people who might want to work with you in the fitness and the health space. So I really think it's a great conversation. Learned a lot from it, and I hope you do too. Thanks for being here. That's what happens when you work from home, right? Like you just have to adapt to stuff.
Sometimes unavoidable. It's fine.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about being a coach. Did you think you were going to be a coach?
No. Wait, do you know this story that I worked in corporate?
No, I think that's a good place to start. So let's talk about your trajectory. Yeah. From working in corporate to becoming a coach.
Yeah, so I tried to get into med school and didn't. And then I kind of wanted to keep the medical science stuff.
Did I tell you that I tried to get into medical school and I didn't?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No way.
I only applied to one school because when I basically decided I went through the whole process and then I was like, I don't want to do this, but I had already committed to taking the MCAT, and I took the MCAT and I did fine. I didn't do poorly. But my dad's like, you should still apply. You did all the work. So I applied to the one school that if I would have gotten in, I would have maybe considered it, but I didn't. I got waitlisted. I actually got to one or two on the waitlist. I was really close to getting in, which I'm really glad that I didn't. So yeah.
That's pretty hectic. The universe really fucked with you for a minute there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it turned out okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's how I view it as well, is it's I didn't get into med school. Also, thank God. I would have hated it. I would have been so bad. I don't think I'd be a good doctor.
But then the question is well, do you think just the dissonance would have taken over and then you just buy into I'm a doctor? And let's be honest, being a doctor is great, right? But it becomes just like any other job for a lot of people. They get into a system that's you don't go to a doctor or you don't become a doctor because you want to type a bunch of notes and you want to wash your hands 75 times a day. Right? So you get kind of chewed up in the same way that a lot of other stuff chews you up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you view that as any job has its downsides or whether you view that as it becomes all consuming. And I think that, I don't know, I have a lot of compassion for medical professionals, especially in 2025 post-pandemic. They have been consistently rolled for the past 5 years, probably longer. So yeah, I don't know if I have lived enough in either world to have much of an opinion on what the pros and cons are of that job. But
well, let's talk about your trajectory. I interrupted you, but what was your path like?
So when I didn't get into med school, I kept at the uni I was at, all the same campus that did med school did human physiology / medical science as a degree. So I did a conjoint degree. So you basically, it's like doing a double major, but you come out with 2 degrees in New Zealand for whatever reason. So one of them was human physiology and then one of them was marketing and management, basically because I didn't know what I was going to do with a physiology degree, and there's not a lot of options after that, and I didn't want to be in a lab. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll work in the business side of something healthcare related or pharma or something like that.
Yeah.
And then in the process of trying to get work experience in business, I was like, oh, I think I hate this. I think this is terrible. I worked at a dairy company in New Zealand. My job was to try to increase sales of mozzarella and cream cheese in South Korea. Like, it just like, it wasn't me. No part of it made any sense for anything I like doing. It was just bizarre. I don't know how I ended
Yeah.
up there.
It's wild. It's wild that that's where you ended up. And so like, when did you say like that this is enough? I'm not doing this. What made you be like, I'm out?
Um, I think if I'm honest with myself, I think I went into that job because that job was offered to me. So like I had been an intern throughout uni and that had been great because it paid the bills, it gave me some work experience, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. I think at that point I should have been like, great, thank you, dairy company, for, thanks for everything you've done. Bye-bye. Like, thank you, next. But because I got offered this grad job, like coming out of uni and everyone's got that uncertainty, I was just like, oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Trademark. Like,
It's also funny because like, because I was a nursing assistant at the hospital while I was like preparing for medical school. And like I was also kind of setting myself up to like if I wanted to become a physio, I could do that too. But like knowing that I wasn't, well, hopefully knowing that I wasn't going to do that job forever, like made it so much more. And it was a great job. Like I learned a lot. I really learned how to communicate, generally help people. I liked, aspects of it. But if I would have
yeah.
been like, this is what you're going to do for the next 20 years, I'd be like, oh God, and that's what I think happens to a lot of people too. Like you get into something and it's hard to see the way out. Right. But when you're in school or when it's just a phase, it makes it like bearable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
then coaching, what has led
coaching.
you there?
So I was probably only 6 months into my actual like job, and I was like, this isn't going to be it. Like, there's no way that this is what I keep doing. I had been in a really toxic team at work, so I had a lot of push factors as well. And I was like, I feel disconnected from like the health stuff that I've been wanting to do. I don't understand. Like I was like, at the time I didn't even eat dairy. So I was just like, this doesn't really speak to me. So I started looking at PT school because I had been seeing a PT and I was like, oh, it's not just burpees and goblet squats. Like there is more to this. He was a big mobility guy. So he kind of helped people in their like post-injury phases and stuff like that. I was like, okay, so this is a job that you can actually help people with relatively low skill in terms of the qualifications you have to acquire.
Yeah.
And I could do this as like at first I was thinking like job hobby, like go to work and then do this as my after work job. So I went to PT school, which was like 6 months roughly in New Zealand to get 2 different qualifications. Started working outside of work. So like I was doing my normal office job and then just PTing before and after work and training myself at lunch. And I was like, wow, I could just do this. Like I don't actually need to do the other shit. And so I did. So eventually I just, I think it was 8 months into PTing that I hit the point where I was earning the same from PT that I was earning from my corporate job. And then I quit my corporate job and then we went into another lockdown. So that was perfect.
Yeah, that was talk about timing. Cause
I
then
know, yeah.
Cause then it was like, yeah, we're shutting everything down and you're SOL.
Yes. New Zealand was quite tight with its restrictions in terms
Yeah.
of what you could do. Like it was a relatively severe set of lockdowns that we had, decreasing in severity over time for sure. But yeah, like we were relatively limited. That said, our government was quite generous at the time about living costs and
Yeah.
support and stuff like that in a much more livable way than it probably was for you guys.
Yeah. 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 Well, it was a complete disruption of like modern life in a lot of ways. And just people don't know, like, it's one of those things I don't really know how to get into it too much because everything's just been so politicized, but like nobody knew what the heck the best course of action to take would be, how restricted people should live, or anything like that. People who think that they did, like, I'm not an infectious disease expert, but like nobody knew, like, so it's hard. Let's talk about, because we're gonna get into some other topics that me and you did talk like briefly about, but like what have been the challenges and the things you enjoy about like being a coach and running your own business? Like, what are the challenges? Let's start there, because I think everybody thinks I saw the statistic, it's like 90% of personal trainers like quit being a personal trainer within like 6 months, because I think it's like it's viewed as like this, oh well, I like fitness, I like XYZ, I could do that, and but to really make it work, it's harder than it's hard. Like, so what are the revelations or the reflections that you've had?
Um, okay, I'll start with the challenges scope of that question. Because as you said, like it is a industry with super high turnover. And I think that one of the reasons for that is that people assume that the skill set is lifting weights. Like they're like, that's what I need to be able to do. And it's like, well, no, obviously not. Like you have to be a decent enough communicator. You have to be a pretty good conversationalist, at least if you're like in a gym setting, PTing people one-to-one. And then all of the business skills that come along with that. How are you going to find new clients? How are you going to like get them into your system? How are you, you know, all of those things. So like those are the kind of standard challenges that kick a lot of people out of the industry because they don't see those things coming necessarily, or like managing a business, accounting, all of that stuff that people, none of us particularly love doing. There's no one's like, oh, I'm gonna go into the industry so I can do accounting.
Yeah.
So when I look at the industry turnover rate, those are the things that I largely attribute it to. The challenges I think for me have been I'm scared of everything. That's my challenge. Like, I don't know, maybe you understand, like, I don't know if you identify with this or not, but I think that if you are hungry to do more than train people one-to-one in a gym context, like a Globo gym, where they feed you leads and they kind of help support your business and stuff like that. If you want anything different, whether that be online training, developing group offerings, or like if you want to expand beyond that context, not that there's anything wrong with that context, I'm not shitting on it at all. But if you're hungry, there's a lot of like fear that comes with having to put yourself out there, try new things. Even honestly, social media is like a thing that is not necessarily easy to do.
I literally just had a conversation with somebody who's like, what, I mean, I want to get like more virtual clients, and like, it's like, I just was blunt, man. You have 100 posts. Like, it's not going to happen until you, like, I look at, even how many posts have you put out? Let's look at this. 871. And to be honest, I don't know. Have you ever deleted content? Like taking
one. I've deleted one post.
So there are some people who, to keep their overarching posts down, they like delete old stuff so it doesn't look like they've had thousands of posts. But like Mike Israetel has like 4,000 posts, right? But like you also, your aesthetic is really good, meaning like your posts look good. You have a really clear communication style. Like people know what you're generally, talking about. You're also a woman in fitness. Are you looking at your page now, or are you?
No, I was just realizing that my notifications are about to start.
You're good. But just like auditing your page, it's like it looks good, right? And so you're gonna grow. God, I don't want to say it, but like I think it's also like being a good-looking woman, Anna, helps. I'm just gonna say that, right? So like me and Angus Bradley talked about this one time, and he's like, because he'll talk to women, and it's like, should I show my butt? And he's like, well, not if you don't want to, but I don't know, like, but it was, the point of this was like, man, it's hard, but like most good things are hard. Like the things that pay off are hard, right?
Yeah. And I think the things that pay off are also scary. Like a conversation I've had a lot of times because it's on my mind and I bring it up, but is the idea that there's this quote from this guy, Ed Lattimore, and I can't remember what he founded. He founded some company, some shit, whatever. Okay, Ed Lattimore, he said the cost of entry is embarrassment. If you want to try something new, if you want to expand your, sights onto something else, you need to accept that at some point you're going to embarrass yourself. And that I would say, like, beyond all of the practicalities of running a business, that is the thing that holds most people back from expanding to something else. It's that they don't want to create the content because they're afraid to put it out there. It's that they don't want to expand their offerings because if it fails, they're going to have to fail publicly. They're going to see that it didn't work out. And it's a very normal human thing but it is 100% a massive barrier to most people. And I think that one of the learnings that I've had for myself in the past year has just been like admitting to myself and very often others of just being like, I'm doing this thing. It terrifies me. I am clenching every orifice I've got because this makes me so uncomfortable, but I'm telling you this because I'm going to do it. And I'm going to need the 5 people in my life that I tell these things. I just need you to be like, keep going. Yep, that sucked. Do it again. You weren't good at that the first time. Try again. And so I think being able to recognize my own fears, state them like out loud to my friends and just be like, you know what? It's just fear. It's only fear. Like fear is something we've all felt 101 times. And there's a lot of things you've done in your life that you were scared of, but you fucking did anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's been a big one for me, I think, in the past couple of years.
It's crazy how, embarrassment is the cost of entry, and criticism is the price you pay to actually say meaningful things, right?
Yes.
To put out things that, because it is hard, but like I had Will Rattel and Austin Yoakum and Angus on a podcast like a week ago. First and foremost, just me having a podcast with those people doesn't happen if I don't start posting on Instagram 3 years ago, right? Or 4 years ago, right? And like I had like Jim Windler, who like 531, like that's like that guy's like
that's cool, man.
A hero, right? And like, but it doesn't happen if you're not if you stay, because the fear isn't real either, right? And when people do troll you, it's like those are just miserable people. Or they're just asking a question, or they have this belief that they think is true and that they disagree with you. And it's like, well, humans can do that. We have that right. So it is scary because I also don't want to be on social media in a way that's like I'm complaining about stuff all the time, because I do want to point out things that I think are unhelpful, but like I do think social media can become a cesspool of just people complaining about their lives pretty quick. And like, I'm like, that's not helpful. Right. And so I do kind of take it in that way. It's like, I do want to create like a positive, hopefully, I want to point out things that I think are silly, but I want to create like a positive environment. And then, but positivity also is not as powerful as negativity, which is tricky because it is easier to get a following when you're just shitting on other people. But that's also not necessarily good from a business standpoint, right?
Yeah. I also want to believe that there is a little bit of a shift in consumption where people are less grabbed by headlines about like bad mistake, like because that worked for quite a long time where people were like, don't do this. And then they would offer you the solution. And it was like, and then buy my product.
And buy this thing. Yeah.
Buy this thing. Discount code Anna Wish.
Your butthole's too tight.
Yeah, like get some sunshine on that shit.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, people.
And I think consumers are becoming more savvy. Maybe this is just a belief that I want to have, but I think people are being a little bit less grabbed by those like silly headlines, or they're more likely to put a layer of thought over it as they get more used to the barrage of social media bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Not to say it doesn't still exist or still work in a lot of ways, but I'm hoping that the, I don't know, social media literacy of people is improving over time. I want that to happen.
I want that to happen too. I don't know if it is though. I don't even know if mine is improving. I still get triggered by stupid stuff at sometimes, and I mean it's just a wild time to be alive. My
suspicion is the rise of YouTube is a suggestion that people are moving away from 8-second content, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
YouTube had like its like early era, and then it kind of like it was still on the scene, but it's dimmed down, and now it's rushing back, and people are watching these like 20-minute videos again, and that's becoming a lot more like cool. Which I don't know. The optimistic part of me says that means people are wanting a slightly deeper dive.
Yeah, I hope you're right too, because personally I think like Instagram, TikTok, like they are just becoming triggers, right? Like they're just they're either like tidbits, as what I have started to really realize and identify is like I'm never gonna not post on Instagram as long as Instagram is where people might find me. But I am enjoying creating more long form content that allows me to like talk to people, because what I'm basically doing right now is I'm just like making a 3 to 5 minute video on like if I was going to talk to a patient or a client about some problem, how I would just approach it. Super low entry point for me putting out more content, but like it also it actually is, this is how I would interact with people, and like, you know, it's useful, right? And I could do that on Instagram to some extent, but I think you're right. I think there is a shift, and also just putting these podcasts up and growing that has been more fun for me in general, because I also think that like, do you want to dance and like shake your butt or do like stupid stuff on Instagram? Like, no, right? Yeah, you want it to be like meaningful content, right?
Yeah. I'm 30. I feel like I'm way too old to do a TikTok dance to information, you know?
Yeah.
That was a thing people did on Instagram. That was a thing people I know did on Instagram, where they like did a dance and pointed to information about vegetables. And I was just like,
Yeah.
that can't be, you cannot be doing that feeling comfortable in that content. And like, as much as I still believe the cost of entry is embarrassment, there is a level of embarrassment that I'm like, that's also just not me. Like, it needs to align with my personality, and my personality isn't dancing to vegetables.
Yeah. I kind of created this mental framework of like, is it authentic? Is it useful? And is it either educational or like entertaining? Because either people are trying to be educated in like short little tidbits, or they're trying to be entertained. And it's not that you can't entertain, but like my form of entertainment is not dancing around. My form of entertainment is memes or like cap cuts of stupid stuff with, you know, funny stuff over top, right? So, but I think you do have, because if it is your thing to dance and point, great, that's fine. You're gonna find the people who like dancing and pointing, right? Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
Sick.
Exactly.
I personally can't. But I also think like you have to know what your thing is. And in conversations about developing long form content, like the people that I've talked to about it, everyone has been like, oh, but you're so funny in a sharing context. My clients will say, you're so funny in your looms. And I'm like, I wasn't really meaning to be funny. That's just how I talk. But like, if that's what's coming across as entertaining, then that's great. Like, that means that content can come hopefully a little bit more easily.
That's just me being an awkward human being. Like,
my unfortunate personality.
I generally, like, I am not an amazing communicator, but I think one of the things that has helped me is I do communicate decently, but then what happens is like when you think you're like doing pretty good, is like the world just kicks you in your teeth and you're like, God, I didn't know how to say that at all, or you just muck it up, right? And working with people is really hard. Conveying information, especially about like nuanced things like pain, injury, performance, you know, why foam rolling might be beneficial, but also why maybe you don't need to do it. Like the actual being like that type of conversation. That's why it's so attractive to be like, hey, do these 3 foam rolling moves to you know, unlock your glutes. It's like, oh man, I hate that so much. And like that stupid, and there's nothing, maybe there's something wrong with that, but like combating that is like, have you ever heard of Brandolini's law or Brandolini's principle? It like takes an order of magnitude more to put out good information, or of good information, to combat like bad information. And most of it's because bad information is often just really simplified, right?
So this is like the vaccines and autism study, right? Like the author retracted it, but it's taken study on study on study on study, and people still believe vaccines lead to, yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, it's, and like causality with humans is so freaking complicated, right? And people also latch on to certain belief. Like, I did a consult a couple weeks ago, and person does something relatively hard 6 to 7 days a week, and they've had hip pain for a while, and not really willing to do anything. Like, I'm like, so are you like willing to like maybe decrease overall like work? Like, what's this look like? You know, what are you thinking? And then they're just like, they were frustrated because I was basically saying like, we have to decrease the amount you're doing so that we can figure out like what is contributing to this, and manage some variables. Did not really love that. For me, went to a doctor. They went to a doctor says, oh, you have a labral tear in your hip, that's causing all your problems, take 6 weeks, we're going to do PRP, and you take 6 weeks off, right, of the gym. I'm like, so you're willing, just because they said that you have this thing, which labral tears can contribute to symptoms at your hip, right? But labral tears also,
Totally.
a lot of people freaking have labral tears with no symptoms either, right? So it's like but that's it, people get it in their brain that there's some fix or there's something, and it may be a contributor, but a lot of times it's like, let's look at the whole thing, which is hard. I want to go back to something because you said it. You said you got to find your thing. What's your thing, Anna?
It's a funny time for you to ask this because
That's why I wanted
I'm
to have this conversation, because I think you're going through some existential.
absolute crisis, man. I mean, I'm kidding. It's not really. But I think I have let Instagram guide me in a lot of ways. Like when I start, and I've told the story a couple of times, you know, the story in some capacity, that I started making content in 2022, and it was just anything. It was just whatever was in my head at the time. And so I made a lot of nutrition content. I made kettlebell content. I made the odd weightlifting content. And then I made some CrossFit gymnastics content. And it was the algorithm taught me.
Yeah.
I didn't teach my Instagram. The algorithm taught me that my gymnastics posts for CrossFit were the ones that were the most successful. And as my account grew, I developed a bit of a mental formula for creating content that was very easy for me to reproduce. It was like, it became faster and faster to edit. Like I went from taking hours to make a post to like, cool, I can go from, you know, camera out to product finished in half an hour for a lot of these reels. And so I kind of got trained by Instagram how to make my content. And that was a good thing for me for quite a long time. Like last year, I had a lot more relative success in the CrossFit gymnastics space. Like I was able to run multiple workshops in different cities. I booked out my Sydney workshop. I couldn't believe that I booked that out. I was so excited about it. I released basically programming for CrossFit gyms to do my gymnastics classes. So if you run a once a week CrossFit class in your gym, you can buy my programming to do that. It gives you all of the information you need, including education for your coaches. I released that. It sold like way faster than I expected it to. So I was like, sweet, like I'm having these things that are tangible successes in terms of my name, my brand, my, I don't know, just like trajectory in the career space. But I also think that as that was happening, I didn't realize how much I was slowly narrowing the scope on the things that I, you know, Anna Wish Fitness talked about on Instagram. And the intention was never for it to get that narrow. It was more out of like laziness and feedback that got me into that direction. And thankfully, like through Gambaroo and working with Eugene, even my partner, because he's not a CrossFit guy, he's a gym guy, he's not a CrossFit guy, and having some other influences in my life of people being like, is that all you want? Like, because you can do that. That's a perfectly valid career path. You can do just CrossFit gymnastics and that becomes the thing. But I have been like, oh, actually, that is not all that I want to talk about. I like training lots of things. I like coaching lots of things. And I love the people who come to me who are like, yeah, I want some gymnasty stuff. Maybe they want it for CrossFit. Maybe they just want it for lols. But I do also like, you know, I spend my life training sprinting, weightlifting, plyometrics, gymnastics, cardio. Like there's lots of things I do that I have, you know, I don't have a 10 out of 10 knowledge base on any of them really, but I've got a 6 out of 10 on a lot of them. And that's many things that I'm probably leaving on the table that I would like to be talking about, that I am now facing the challenge of being like, I have to remember how I talked about those because the formula that I used for CrossFit gymnastics doesn't fit those things. So I admit very much to having trouble with content at the moment because I'm like, I want to expand this. I don't want to lose all of that original audience. But I don't entirely know where I'm taking things next on my short form stuff. I do know what I'm doing on YouTube. That's coming soon. But yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of, it's not really cognitive dissonance. It's just, I don't know where I'm going entirely at the moment.
Well, knowing where you're going, right? Do we ever?
No, but I think I have always had some version of a goalpost that it was like, I'm kind of moving in that direction at the moment with total knowledge and acceptance that the goalposts always move as your life progresses and develops and evolves and whatever. But I think I have some idea of what the direction is, but I don't think I'm very good at developing the path at the moment to whatever that's going to look like.
Yeah. What like the path, yeah, because I always go back to that quote whenever people say like path, because it's like if the path is clear or easy, you're on somebody else's, right? Like it doesn't mean that there's not like principles to walking it. But are you still going to compete in weightlifting? Like, is that something you're still going to do competitively?
Yep. As soon as athletics season is over, I'd like to get back to some weightlifting.
So like, when's your athletic season's over?
Either end of February, early March, or end of April.
See, I just think like I'm just like moving to, I don't know if I can totally get myself to do this too, but it's like just when you have people that want to do like seasons of strength, like seasons of like, hey, what do you want this next 3 to 6 months to be like, right? What does this look like for you? Because it's still just knowing what I know about you and who your influences are and what it apparently like. It's like you're never going to change training all the physical qualities. It's just like, which ones do you want to focus on in this season, right?
Yeah.
Which I think that type of mentality, that's kind of where I'm trying to move a lot of my thinking is getting people like, I did a consult with Zach Congonis, and like he kind of laid out, I just wanted to like talk about creating like a system, and he's like, a lot of it just comes down to like asking people what their long-term goals are, which is like a year, right? Or maybe beyond that, what their medium-term goals are and what their short-term goals are. I'm like, yeah, like it probably just boils down to that a lot of times, right? Like where I live in the winter right now, it kind of makes sense that I'm just like lifting and then I go play basketball and a couple times a week with friends, right? And am I still trying to get stronger? Yes. Am I still trying to get faster? Yes. But most of it is just like survive the winter, because the winter kind of sucks. So make sure you're enjoying stuff as much as you can and moving a lot.
Yeah.
I think like I'm going to sign up for an Olympic lifting meet in the not too distant future. So like spring time is like still that. And then honestly, I kind of want to find an adult track meet. So like end of summer, early fall would be really fun to do like a track meet to just get absolutely dusted by people who actually ran track in high school and I've just continued to.
Bro, yeah, 100%. And that's my game in athletics as well. Like I fully understand that I'm gonna get smoked by the 12-year-old next to me. Like that's fine. Like it is.
It's more about just pushing myself at this point in life, right? Seeing what I can get better at and enjoy, and like what do I enjoy, right? So okay, with everything sort of CrossFit, sort of hybrid.
I don't like that. I need to change that.
No,
but I needed to get rid of the like, I help this person do this. It's like, it's time.
Who's your ideal client right now?
I have recently picked up a few people that I'm really like, not that I don't enjoy my other clients, but people that I'm like, oh, this is a fun category of people to work with, which is people who have kind of like dabbled in the calisthenics space, have dabbled in some other stuff, maybe saw me doing some power training online and were like, oh, that's really cool. I would like to kind of like dip my toes in that water. And a lot of the people that I'm training at the moment that I'm having a lot of fun with are actually not people who are signing up for competitions. They're just like, I want fun GPP that does lots of different things. And I enjoy that. Like I know lots of coaches who are like, if they're not competing, it's not interesting. I just don't feel that way. I'm like, no, this is great. We can go wherever we want. And look, it's helpful sometimes to narrow things down and be like, cool, this is our weightlifting season for you. We're going to put in a pretend comp phase in April and we'll work back from there so we can do some specific training and stuff. Like, but you can do that without necessarily having them need to compete. So that is kind of like an avatar I'm enjoying a lot at the moment. I've got a few women who are in their kind of like 30s, maybe 40s, and they've been training a while and they're like, I want something that's more interesting. Maybe they've done CrossFit, maybe they've done something else, and they're just like, I just need some flavor up in this bitch.
Well, so because you mentioned like anybody that I sign on, it's like I probably like you, right? And like because
Yeah.
like I think a lot of it when you work with somebody personally, like there is like a vibe check. Does this seem like
Mm.
it's gonna work? And there's some of it's you don't always know, right? But like for coaches, like because some I know people who like other coaches listen to this type of stuff. There'll be 50 views on this, maybe 100. With you, you'll probably get more than like than some other people. Like I think me and my first one with you got pretty good views, so keep it coming.
That's
Yeah,
nice. Thanks,
like
guys.
you're a bump, but it's like just because you kind of have like an ideal client doesn't mean you don't like helping everybody else. My
Oh,
like especially when they're kind of in the range of this is the type of people that I want to help, right? Most of it for me is like if I can help somebody get pretty freaking clear about what they're after, it makes it a lot more fun. But what happens is people kind of get shiny object syndrome or they don't know what they want, right? And they're kind of using a coach to like guide them in like figure out what I want for me, and it just doesn't work like that, right? Like cuz if I have people who really love powerlifting, sweet. It gives us a really tangible goal, but also like some of it is my kind of core belief when it comes to powerlifters is that people just beat the crap out of themselves the whole year and then they
mm,
burn out and they get injured and they can't make it like a long-term thing that they enjoy, right? So like doing
yeah.
other stuff that makes you a more well-rounded athlete makes a big difference, right?
Mhm,
um
mhm.
so yeah, I think that's the big thing when it comes to like coaching. Like it's fun to work with people who like are motivated to do stuff and get some clarity. It's just
Mm.
like it's not fun when people like are second guessing every decision that they are making, right? Like you can second guess me a little bit as your coach a little bit. I think that's a good relationship, but like you got to be kind of all in on like maybe or not all in, but like this is what I want for the next 3 to 6 months or this is the next 3 months of what I want, right?
Yeah, but I also think sometimes the most fun conversations are the ones that are about when those things change.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a conversation I had yesterday with a client, and I've had this client for like, I don't know, more than 6 months. It's been like probably 8 or 9 months, whatever. Her and her husband joined me sometime last year. And she's had all of these changes in her life. So she's changed jobs, she's moved, they're doing a whole bunch of changes to the house that they're now in. Her husband went from doing a corporate job, now he's doing his own, like he's an entrepreneur, whatever. And her life used to be really wrapped around CrossFit. Like it was very much performance focused and it was like that was a big thing for her and it made up quite a lot of her sense of self. And now that so many other things have changed in her life, she's had to pull back her training, she's prioritizing other things. And I think there's like the conversation we had yesterday was it's completely normal and acceptable and okay that this identity that you used to hold on to tightly isn't your whole identity anymore. Like as a human, you've changed, you've grown, things have expanded beyond this. And the expectations you carry of yourself in terms of your behaviors, execution, and even performance in this space will probably change along with your lifestyle. And that can be a very challenging thing to accept for someone who has held themselves to an incredibly high standard in the past in one arena, especially if they're now holding themselves to that same standard in several arenas in their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think as coaches, we should be able to navigate those conversations with some level of comfort and ease, and at least be able to reassure people like it is normal and natural that these things can change over time. And now we just have to go through the process of figuring out, okay, what do we want? What does your identity mean in this space? How does that influence how we train you? And whether you're competing in this or whether you're just treating it as a GPP type thing, what are the outcomes that you want? And I think that that's a conversation we have to revisit fairly often, especially when people's lives are as dynamic as they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
So
an
yeah.
excellent point. I also think like what you're mentioning there is like a lot of the trusting in like the relationship that you build with people when you work with them, right? I think a lot of coaches look at it like, well, I just give them a program, this is also not coaching. Give them the program, execute the program. Hey, all right, keep that feedback loop. And like, that's not coaching, right? Like coaching is actually, trying to help people clarify what they're after, how you can best help them so that they can do the work. And also, yeah, like not being a giant turd to yourself when life is giving you this. And if your expectations are this, but it's just not realistic, like it's okay. Like there's still movement in the right direction, or there's still movement in the direction of realistic goals that we can make, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's just like trying to have meaningful conversations with people, which is often really fun if you're on the same page, right?
Yeah, and I think that like there's probably styles of coaching in there as well. Like there are some coaches. Oh, you mentioned Zach. Zach is someone who wants to be a spreadsheet jockey. That is what he wants to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to interact with people. He wants to do a spreadsheet. He wants them to execute the spreadsheet. He wants the communications to be through the spreadsheet. Like that is what he wants.
Yeah.
I don't find enough gratification in that. And I like having those conversations with my clients where it's like, okay, well, like let's, they don't need to be my best friend forever, but I do want them to pass the have a beer test. And like,
Yeah.
I'm quite happy to have those conversations that are a little bit more centered around them versus just their training. And I think as coaches, we kind of have to figure out what balance of that do we like or tolerate or find energizing versus draining. And people who are seeking a highly empathetic, highly invested coach are not going to go see a spreadsheet jockey, and vice versa. Like people who want spreadsheet jockey won't come to me. That's a good thing for both of us. That's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's 100% true. And I like that point that, like a lot of it is there's just a good match fit between people and coaching styles. And, because a lot of it in my opinion is like, when you also, I think Zach's, just having talked to Zach's like, I mean, like Zach's a super nice guy. He's probably super compassionate too, but where his brain goes at this current juncture of his training, I think is like, hey, just give me the work. Cause like, it was funny that Zach's like, the program doesn't need to change for like 10 weeks. And like, in our current era of training, like that's like super different than what most people, you gotta have like an athlete that really trusts that, right? And I think athletes probably do trust that more so than like fitness junkies, because fitness junkies, like, I said this on a podcast with somebody else. It's like playing basketball 2 days a week has made it so I don't really care what my other training is. I just need to make sure it like checks the boxes, because it's like I just want to be healthy for the sport a little bit. Which, when fitness is your thing, I think you're constantly looking for, how do I improve my fitness, right? But when you're playing a sport, it's like, hey, is that sport feeling good? Am I enjoying that? And that sometimes can be really, at least it's really helped me realize that. And it's kind of funny because my training has gotten more enjoyable and probably better too, right? Let's talk.
And I think that's an important thing to recognize. It's like, is your training for one outcome or for you, the person, right? Like, and I think for an athlete who's just trying to get through a program because they need to maximize their wattage on everything, like that is what you do. And I just personally like enjoying my training more than that. So I choose to do things that I'm like, a set of walking lunges today is suboptimal, and I'm going to do it because I want to. And I think you just have to figure out what the balance is for you if you're a fitness doing individual versus a competitive athlete, and where you sit on that spectrum. Like, I'm not going to masters worlds for sprinting. Therefore, if one of my sprint training days isn't perfect, oh well, fuck, whatever.
I think you're 100% right. And it's funny to me though too, is like in the long run, it kind of balances out, because like the person who chases that specific outcome, like at some point you're gonna have to go back to doing some specific or some general stuff anyway, to just feel good about training again, right? And doesn't mean that it was all for not pursuing that specific outcome, but like enjoying the training process in general just makes it so much better to even chase a specific outcome, right? Because like you're gonna have shitty days, and if you enjoy the gym even on your shitty days, it's gonna be a lot. Like, that's just, so many people have come back to that, and I talked to, when I was like, I mentioned with Will and Angus and Austin. It was like what matters, and like we all kind of came to this conclusion, like basically you got to change tissue, right? So you got to challenge, you got to go, like there's got to be some element of like proximity to failure, and then like quote unquote buy-in, so like belief in what you're doing. But like the overarching thing is if we can get people to enjoy the training experience, like they're probably going to get good results in the long run, right? So
Yeah.
and there's a lot of ways to do that.
Yeah.
What are you, all right, so where are you? I want to know where you're going to take Instagram, or where are you going to take your content?
Look, for long form content, which is YouTube stuff, I've got a few ideas that my partner and I are working on developing now. So that should be, I think we're probably going to manage to get that out like late Feb, early March will probably be the first one. And that one is actually about the cost of entry is embarrassment. That is what that clip is about. And we're going to center it around my like sprint season, basically. Like it'll just be me like coming last in all of the races, but like that's kind of almost good for the plot. Like I don't want to lose, I'm gonna try to not lose. But
I want to do like, I want to be like, can I run a 4:40 by the time I'm 40 years old? Like I'm 36, I don't know what my 40 time is. I should probably just go test it. It's probably like 5:2. But if I can run a 4:4 by the time I'm 40, if that's even a potential, that would make a good docuseries. But are you talking like are you talking like high production type of, well, relatively high production type of 30-minute video, or what are you talking about here?
No, I don't think it'll be 30. I think we'll probably be in the kind of like 10 to 20 minute range for something like. And I think it's just YouTube will be a cool place to carry more personality into it for me. Because a lot of it can be conversational, which is I think where I come across a lot more naturally than just like scripted Instagram, blah blah blah, you know. So that's YouTube it'll still be training related, but I think I also want it to be kind of like more interesting messaging, more relatable things, probably a bit more broadly appealing. I'm not going to be very CrossFitty on YouTube, apart from the fact that it's like this is part of my training influences. On Instagram, I will have to maintain some of the kind of like CrossFitty stuff, and I want to continue like nurturing that audience to a certain degree. But I think I would also like to expand it into some of the other arenas of training that I do. And some of that content is probably going to be a bit less specific, which is part of why I'm probably struggling with it, because the feedback that I get from people when they like, you know, even when I met someone like at the track a few weeks ago who was like, oh, you're the girl from the, you know, like you're the girl from the internet. And I was like, weird, but yeah, like what? I didn't expect that at a track. Maybe I'll expect that at a CrossFit gym, but certainly not at the track. And like the thing people say to me when they meet me is, I love the way you explain things. I love the way you communicate this. You said it to me in a way that made more sense. Members in the gym will be like, the way you cued that made sense to me for the first time after whatever, like that. If I believe in having any degree of superpower, it's just saying things slightly differently, apparently sometimes funny, in a way that resonates with some proportion of the population. And it's never going to be everyone, but like, I don't know. I think you have to believe in having some superpower. And if that's it, it's probably that. So I don't know yet how to bring that out of the CrossFit space into the rest of it. We're going to try. And Eugene's working hard on me to get us there.
Well, because I was going to say like, because yeah. So is Eugene in like, is he in New Zealand?
No, Eugene's in Melbourne.
It's in Melbourne. Okay. Are you in Melbourne? No, you're in New Zealand.
No, I'm in Brisbane. So that's like,
you're in Brisbane.
I don't know, like a 3-hour flight.
You were in New Zealand though during lock. Were you in?
Was.
Okay.
Yes, for like 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like because Eugene's been putting out stuff. Like I don't know Eugene. I'm just saying Eugene's been putting out stuff for a long time, right? But like what is Eugene even? Like this is the thing. It's like kind of, you know, like what we conceptualize ourselves in various ways. Like you're Anna Wish Fitness, and I'm not to like just make you into like a single identity type of thing. Like, are like is being fitness. So because the way I look at you is like you're Anna Wish Fitness, but like your fitness is not like Meg Squats Fitness or
Mm.
XYZ Fit. It's not like pure snatch your waist booty building fitness. Not that there's anything wrong with those things. Oh, snatch your waist is dumb. Booty building, great. Build your booty.
Sure.
It's a powerful set of muscles, right? But like you do, I think it's just okay with like owning that I don't know exactly what this is, but it's me, and I'm gonna keep putting that out, right? Like you said, the algorithm can train you, or you can train it, and I don't know exactly how to, like, obviously I'm at, and I shouldn't undermine, like I started with like 400 followers, right? Like I have like 80 85 81 or 8200. It's like great, it's helped my business a ton, but like, because to some extent it's not even about like, if you have 100,000 clients or 100,000 followers, I think this is what people don't understand. It's not like Instagram's paying us, you know, like what we're trying to do is develop a quote unquote brand and put out services and products that people will maybe trust to us enough to purchase, right? Like, so if you have 100,000 followers, theoretically that's advantageous. But like, if all you ever did was just stuff that's not actually meaningful, then like to you selling a service or selling a product, then it doesn't really matter, right? But if you have, 20,000 people who want to buy your service, that's awesome, right? So, but like, yeah, what's your version of fitness? Like, that's my thing. Like Anna Wish Fitness. Like, what is, if you keep that name? Maybe you don't keep that name, but I think maybe you should. But like, your brand of fitness, what's that look like?
I do think that, whether through CrossFit or various other influences, my brand of fitness includes a certain amount of breadth. It's being good at lots of things. And for most of us, accepting that we're not going to be the best at any one of those things. So I kind of like the way when I'm programming, I divide things into like move fast, move slow, gymnastics / kinesthetic control. Like maybe mobility flexibility, although it's generally fairly low on the list for most people that I'm training. And then cardiac fitness, either at the top end and also at the kind of like endurance, just survival for time type end. And those are kind of the variables that I play with when I'm programming, and they're the things that matter to me in terms of my output. So I think when I think about mastery of fitness, the subject for myself, because I'm not a super competitive athlete in any one thing. Like, yes, I compete in weightlifting. I'm okay at it. I'm not great. For me, I'm like, cool, if I can work toward a 100-kilo clean and jerk, and also, I haven't even selected a goal time for my 100-meter run, but like, if I can work toward having all of those things in one package and develop that over time, and sort of like, those spider graphs, when you're like FIFA or something, I don't know if this is on FIFA, but like they've got the spider chart of like speed, endurance, agility, whatever. Like I just want a really round spider graph for myself. And over time, I want that spider graph to keep expanding in all the domains. And I think that's the brand. It's kind of like, most of us are never going to be elite at one thing. So maximizing for your spider graph to be amazing in that one column, it's not necessarily a waste of time. Some people spend their lives doing that and they're amazing athletes. But for those of us who know we're not going to get there and we're not even interested in doing the things that requires because of the personal cost involved with that kind of a lifestyle, expanding the graph is an equally fun, interesting, challenging, and diverse goal that presents us with fun ways to train, but also fun challenges in terms of pulling it all together into a program. So I think that's what the page is about. It's about like, how do we get good at lots of shit? Maybe it's CrossFit related, maybe it's not. And how do we have fun in the process of doing that? And does it allow you to pivot if you do want to be like, I'm going to dial up the speed and power piece of the spider graph because I'm in comp season for that? How do I now dial it up for weightlifting? How do I now dial it up if I want to do a CrossFit season? Can I get my gymnastics volume higher? I want, this is why I chose the name Infinite for the program on Gambaroo, is I want you to have almost infinite options in terms of where you can pivot your training at any given time. It's having a high floor across the board so that if you want to raise the ceiling on things, you're closer.
Yeah. I like, there's two things that because what you just described is like, that's so much of just how I think too, right? There's like probably literally millions of people like that, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
them come from like CrossFit. You just stop wanting to go to like the class and doing like, and even if I would have went to CrossFit classes over the past 10 years, maybe I would have gotten better at certain things, uh but like there's always just been a few things that have come through my mind, because I've worked with people who they're just like, I just want to be well rounded. Well, I'm like, what does that mean? It's like a lot of it's what you're saying. It's like, I'm not going to be the fastest marathon runner in my friend group, but if I had to train for a marathon that was 12 weeks out from now, that I could be in shape for it, right? Or hey, I want to do an Olympic lifting meet, and I want to run 5Ks. Cool. Like there, pick your physical quality. Like I either think it's like well-rounded, or I do want to figure out like, and probably somebody's already done this. It's like, do you play video games?
Badly and occasionally.
But I mean, like a lot of games are oriented around like there's a main quest and then there's side quests, right? And it's like, hey, pick your main quest for the next month or for the next year, right? And then pick 5 side quests or whatever. Like, for some reason, it sounds really nerdy, but it's like, yeah, my main quest is that I want to run a sub 25K, but my side quests are, I want to see how many pull-ups I can get. I want to, snatch, XYZ, and like, if they're not reasonable, then you have to be like, okay, what are your expectations? But a lot of times it's like where I think so many people get bogged down is like you said, infinite's a good name, but also there are infinite possibilities, or there's a shit ton of possibilities of what your training could look like. And so we got to pick some things to move in directions. Otherwise, we're just going to spin our wheels forever, right? So
yes. Yeah. And that's why I like the model of kind of having like, raising the floor over time, but being able to like pivot into one category for a season or for a purpose or whatever. Because I think if your whole life is GPP and you never try to like go hard on anything, you end up kind of going hard on nothing. So it's like, cool, where is the floor low? Where do we raise that? And then what do we do next? So it does still sort of provide you with an order of operations when it comes to your training, and also understanding when your main quest and your side quests just don't go together. Like
they don't go together at all.
Main quest and ultra marathon and your side quest maxing out or like minimizing your 100-meter sprint time. Like that's a bad side quest. Now you're just in The Witcher riding around in the forest without anything. Like, what are you doing?
The problem is though that there's always like that one dude. There's this one dude I follow. I can't remember his name right now, but like he's an ultra marathoner that squats like 600 pounds. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, right? And there's just always going to be like people like that. Like if you say ultra marathoning, I want to run ultra marathons and I want to like squat heavy. It's like, well, where are we at with both of those things right now? And and like, should you keep squatting when you're trying to train for an ultra marathon? Yes, right. But like, let's talk about what it's going to look like to drive either one of those in the right direction, right?
I mean, Alec Blennis, that's what it looks like. It looks like Alec.
Exactly, right. And like that's the other thing. It's like Alec Blennis has been just doing it for
ages,
like a long time, like 20 years. Like I don't know. He's been doing. This is the other thing I think about too, and we'll wrap up here shortly. So there's two things. Like, do you know rugby at all? A little bit.
I know.
Like flanker, like what is a flank? Like just I kind of want to look like, what does like the world's best flanker do for training, or who are like really, because like I played flanker in college. I wasn't very good, but you had to be able to run most of the game. You had to be able to tackle, and you had to be. I wasn't very strong, but you had to be relatively strong, right? Okay, so look at who does that at a really high level. Those things all appeal to me. You got to be strong. You got to move. You got to be relatively fast. You got to be coordinated. Cool. That sounds really fun to me. I should probably look that up and see what they like look like and train like. But yeah, you got to pick something like that to shoot for, right? Yeah. The other thing about Alec, and it's not that he's done stupid training, but he's done stupid stuff and learned from it so that like he can keep doing it. Like, because he was on my podcast, I think I had him on during the summer, and he's like, oh man, I do, like, he does stupid shit all the time. He just understands that, like, oh, that was kind of dumb. I got to pull, like, not stupid stuff, but he overreaches
Yeah.
and then comes back for it. Whereas a lot of people, like when they overreach or they don't learn the lesson very well, right? And then they start to shoot themselves in the foot. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, Alec is a smart enough guy to be like, oh, that didn't work. Let's iterate. But I think that's probably a trap that a lot of people get caught in, is like, especially if they are in this kind of like, multi-dimensional fitness spaces, like because they try to max out everything, they end up just burning themselves out. And so there's definitely a thing to watch for. And like, you can look at not high level CrossFitters, but you can look at like quarterfinal to semifinal level CrossFitters and just like smell the burnout in the room. And like that's kind of the space where things go wrong, right? Is where like they're really trying to maximize everything at the cost of their own sanity, health, injuries, etc. So yeah, I definitely think there's a
what makes you smell that burnout, or what are the things that you're like, I smell the burnout when you kind of see it?
People who do not recognize when they are training badly, like people who are so used to feeling like absolute dog shit that they can no longer remember that they feel like dog shit because it's so long since they've felt good. It's that like under-fueled, made it to 16 minutes in the workout and crashed, even though they definitely have the fitness for more, like that. Like you could spot it a mile away. That slight gray tinge to the skin that says they're not really getting their healthy human things done. But still wanting, and like it always comes from a place of like burning desire and passion and all of those things.
Hardest worker in the room.
And I think it's just like it's an awesome thing to be the hardest worker in the room, unless you're the hardest worker in the room who's spinning their wheels.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome to be the hardest worker in the room if you have the resources to be the hardest worker in the room and the intelligence to know that sometimes you can't be the hardest worker in the room, right? Like, it's very different to be the hardest worker in the room as like an NFL quarterback who's making millions of dollars to literally like make decisions on the field, and you show up and you watch film and you take care of your body and you throw passes and stuff. It's very different to be the hardest worker in the room when you have 3 kids and you have to work a job and you still want to like do fitness, but you also are like killing yourself slowly, right? I just see that. I've seen that where people just like, dude, you're just like killing yourself, and you got to find other ways to manage the stress. All right, last question. What does 80-year-old Anna Wishnowsky, what's she doing? What's she doing to stay fit and active? What's that version of you look like in your mind's eye?
I would love to believe something pretty similar to what I'm doing now. Like at the track 2 weekends ago, I was racing next to a woman in her 60s, I want to say. And she started sprinting when she was 29, and she had like every master's record of her age group since the age of like, 40 or something. Like it was like she had this incredible accumulation of successes in the world of athletics, and she had started super late in her life. And I think that's just like the most beautiful, inspiring story of someone who's like just getting after it because they still can. And the other person that I look at is there's another woman in her 60s at our gym, and she just crushes it. Like she does her swimming on Thursdays and her long run on Mondays, and she comes to CrossFit 3 times a week to get in her high intensity interval stuff and like some bone density. Like it's people like that just impress the living shit out of me, that I'm like, you have just decided that you do this. This is just who you are. And I just have so much respect for someone who's like, like, of course, this is why are you asking?
They just tuned out the world and just they do what they say, this is what I enjoy, and like this is what I do.
Just doing their thing. And I think, like there's obviously only so much that we fight the decay process. Like aging will happen to all of us, but I think the people who stay the youngest despite their chronological age are the people who continue trying things, expanding. Maybe 80-year-old me plays volleyball, I don't know, but I want to know that I have the option to do so at that time. And I think that's something that like I think about all the time, is I'm like, I could join a rec soccer league tomorrow. I could join a rec volleyball league tomorrow. I wouldn't be good, but I probably wouldn't be the worst person in the whole league.
If you're capable of playing because
Yeah.
you've maintained your athleticism, then they're in a really good spot. I think about that more and more often. It's like, I just want to keep my options open for what I can do, right? Like, you know, theoretically, like, I'm 12 weeks away from a powerlifting meet. I'm 12 weeks away from a Olympic lifting meet, or 12 weeks away from a 5K or something like that, right? Like, theoretically, you say that you're 12 weeks away no matter what you're at, but like, it'd be cool to be like 12 weeks away from feeling pretty good about like what I did because I'm just genuinely ready, right? Or something like that. So yeah.
And community, I think that's an important one as well. Like, you know, especially in the environment that we live in, where, you know, we hear that loneliness is an epidemic. The people who I don't worry about loneliness for are those people who are like, I still have my whole CrossFit community or my whole track community, or I have, you know, fuck, maybe I'm an 80-year-old fiery volunteer out in the bush fighting some Aussie fight. Like, I think whatever it is, it needs to be something that keeps you as active as you can be for as long as you can be, preferably with people, because you're not, how many 80-year-olds do you see in the gym training alone?
Yeah, probably none. I mean, I don't see. I train in my garage gym, so I don't see any 80-year-olds. Well, I have a 90-year-old client that comes with her daughter and granddaughter, and that's awesome, and it's been really good for them. But yeah, you're right. Like, people having community is probably the overarching thing that I think will change people's lives when they realize that. Like, the fitness that you can do with other people. I don't know. I like to train alone. I do like to train alone. I do think if I had like a group of 5 to 10 people that I really vibed with, and like we were kind of, that would be awesome. Or even just, you know, I could go to a gym and build that. But like, that's also the way that gyms have become. It's either like this weird class structure that like you into the class and you're gone, and like maybe you make friends, or it's just a globo gym where you're not really meeting any people anymore because everybody's on their phone or XYZ, or people are just creepy, right? It's tricky to foster community around, right? So,
it is, absolutely. And I think gyms that support that can be really helpful, especially as you age. Like, CrossFit gyms are known for the community thing. And like, that's why I went to a CrossFit gym the day after we moved to Australia. I was like, I don't know, but I'll meet someone. Like,
it's a good point. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I think whatever activities, and maybe it's not a fitness thing, maybe fitness remains your solo thing, but I just think I've seen a lot of success stories from fitness, and that's my bias of being in the fitness industry, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, like
yeah, we both know people who are fit, but they're unhappy because they don't have any social like outlets, right? And so it's like, okay, so you got to ask yourself what's going on, you know, in your life. And it's definitely solving the human condition is a tricky problem. So, but
I don't think we can. Not today.
No, not today. No, I appreciate you. I hope that I asked you some questions that maybe spur you to just let it rip and keep having fun. Because I think at the end of the day, I think that's what, if you do that, you're gonna be fine. So
yeah, I honestly think that's the secret to social media longevity as well, is have some fucking fun with it.
Oh my God. If I didn't laugh at some of the stupid stuff I've done or XYZ, because it is performative. You are trying to influence people. Like, I don't like, again, Will Rattel's like, people use influencer like it's a pejorative, and it's like, well, of course I'm trying to influence people. Like, I want people to understand good training and think about things differently. Like, people shit on people for being like, strength coaches shit on other strength coaches for being an influencer, but it's like, yeah, but like, do you want people with shitty takes to just be out there doing it, or do you want like people who care to be talking about it, right? But you're right, like, you can, if you don't have fun with it, the fear will be like, it'll keep you in your cage, right? And so that's been a big piece of me. If I'm gonna do it all the time, I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna enjoy it as best I can, right? So
yeah, and you're gonna embrace embarrassment. That's our 2025.
Embracing embarrassment. And that's what you should just call it. The Embracing Embarrassment Program.
This is the super embarrassing program.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
Well, at Anna Wish Fitness on Instagram, and hopefully very soon YouTube.
Perfect. Get that YouTube going. It'll be good.
Working on it. It's coming.
Enjoy the in-laws and have a happy Thursday.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you. Nice to see you.
See you. Good to see you.